the second woman said in the same disembodied tone. Like the others, she looked to be little more than skin and bones. "What are you talking about?" Richard asked. "Bring us our dead," one of the other men repeated. "What dead?" Richard asked. "Our dead," a different man said in a voice equally devoid of emotion. The circular answers were getting him nowhere. Back in the camp behind him, Richard could hear a soft, calculated commotion as soldiers of the first file, awakened by the sound of his sword being drawn, threw off their blankets and sprang to their feet. He knew that they would be snatching up swords, lances, and axes at the ready near where they had been sleeping. These were men who were always prepared for trouble. Without taking his eyes from the five any longer than necessary to snatch quick glances to either side in order to watch for other threats, Richard knew that the soldiers behind him would be giving hand signals for defensive positions. As distant as they were, as careful as they were, he could hear a footstep here, the rustle of leaves there, the squish of mud underfoot to the side as some of them moved swiftly through the forest to surround the strangers. These men were the best of the best, experienced soldiers who had worked hard to join the elite corps of the first file. They all had seen years of combat. A number of their ranks had already given their lives after coming to the Darklands in order to help get Richard and Kahlan safely back to the palace. Unfortunately, they were all still a very long way from home. "I don't know who you were talking about," Richard said as he watched the distant gazes of the five people before him. "Are dead," the first woman said in a lifeless voice. Richard frowned. "Why are you telling this to me?" "Because you are the one," the man who had touched him said. Richard lifted his fingers one at a time, flexing them in a wave-like motion, readjusting his grip on his sword. He looked from one blank face to another. "The one? What are you talking about?" "You are Fua Grissa o Strauka," another man said. "You are the one." Goosebumps tingled up the back of Richard's neck. Fua Grissa o Strauka meant the bringer of death in the ancient language of High Daharan. It was a name prophecy had given him. Very few people, other than Richard, knew the dead language of High Daharan. Perhaps even more disconcerting was how these five would know that it referred to him. Richard kept the point of his sword toward the five, making sure none of them could approach any closer, even though none of them tried. He wanted to be sure he had fighting room should he need it. "Where did you hear such a thing?" he asked. "You are the one. You are Fua Grissa o Strauka, the bringer of death," one of the women said. "That is what you do. You bring death." "And what makes you think that I can bring you your dead?" "We have long sought our dead," she said. "We need you to bring them to us." "Bring us our dead," another man repeated, for the first time with a trace of dark insistence that Richard didn't like. It seemed to make some kind of sense to the five people, but it didn't make any sense to Richard, other than in a decidedly perverse way. He knew the three ancient meanings of the term Fua Grissa o Strauka and how they applied to him. These five were using it in an entirely different way. Behind him, he could hear Kahlan racing back toward him. He recognized the unique sound of her boots, strikes, and stride. She had been sharing some quiet time with him before dawn, and had only moments before started back toward the camp. As she came rushing up behind him, Richard held his left arm out to make sure she stayed out of the way should he need to use his sword. "What's going on?" she asked as she came to an abrupt halt not far away. Richard stole a quick glance back over his shoulder. The tense concern of her expression did nothing to diminish the flawless beauty of her familiar features. Richard turned back to the five to keep his eye on them. They were gone. He blinked in surprise and then looked around.